Yo, what's up? We've got a little time here, so I'm gonna try to record a video. We got a Gemini rising right now, so I thought we'd use this moment to try to understand something about this week. So thank you for watching my channel. My name is Henry Harrison. I appreciate you watching my videos, subscribing to my channel, liking my videos, all that great stuff. I do appreciate it, so thanks. Before I do anything else, I want to thank God, who gives wisdom and understanding, that we can understand these mysteries to the glory of His name. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So, this morning we have the new moon in Pisces, fresh off of the sun. The moon is on Neptune, and you have the Mars-Venus conjunction on Pluto. So, I guess we'll see what that is the rest of the day, but starting on Sunday, like we talked about a little bit this past week, we have the Mars Venus moving into Aquarius where they conjoin. So the planet Venus will actually overtake Mars while they're in Aquarius, which is pretty interesting because that means they're within a few minutes of each other before they enter, or within 1 minute, and that's a very exact conjunction at 0 degrees Aquarius here. So it'll be quite profound. I think it'll be very much a turning point for all of those themes in Aquarius that have been kind of as if not going anywhere, or where there's going to be some activity and movement, and also bringing things together in Aquarius that maybe have just been kind of sitting there in a way. And if you saw my last post, I had in the comments there, or in the description, that video of Professor Lathwaite showing his magnetic river, which he invented in, I think, the 40s. But if you watch that video, you can see how an electron in his model doesn't actually go through the wire, right? It's a field which it's an electromagnetic field that makes use of the state of the wire, right? And the electron, actually they all stay in the same place, but the charge moves through the field, right? And I think there's a lot of that with Aquarius. I think that's a very Aquarian concept, idea. So Mercury in Aquarius has already developed this area here with the direct and then retrograde and then direct through the beginning of Aquarius and all of Aquarius. So I think there's a sense where we understand a lot more about what we're pushing things through here in terms of the internet or society, or the divisions in society, or lying new structure, especially related to the internet and other explicitly magnetic things. So it's the two most magnetic planets, or planets that are especially magnetized to each other, entering this sign of Aquarius, which is quite fixed. And I think it'll be a very strong, energetic, like you turn on the breaker, and then all of the connections of the circuit breaker are also all online. So there's a sense of adding a lot of energy and connection back to this solid state system that we're all part of here. So enough of that. With the moon, though, I think with the moon going into Taurus right after that, and immediately making that square, there's like a very strong jolt on the moon in Taurus. I don't necessarily think this is an unpleasant moment. I don't know how good of a moment it is to maybe or what you may want to do at this time, but there's definitely a sense of things being electrified. It's good that Venus is in the aspect to the moon when the moon is in its sign, but it's also quite hot, quite in a way not desirable really with Mars there. So probably new fun situations, but also like new problems and a sense of disagreement or dividing between people, and that will continue to build up. And I think once we get a little bit more of a sense of what this is, we'll be able to talk about it more in the next couple weeks too. It's just kind of hard to tell with this one. It's not really a routine aspect, being Mars and Venus at 0 degrees, where the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction was. So on another level, because Venus and Mars are the inner planets, Jupiter and Saturn are outer planets, there's a sense that maybe the things that got started with the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction really have a more personal and tangible surface to them with them in Aquarius there. So it definitely calls back to that. So anyway, we'll try to get back to the moon. So on Monday, the moon is in Taurus on top of Uranus, so moves right into Uranus here. Well, we should actually go back to Monday because the moon doesn't make any aspects after that. So maybe things, Saturn is pretty advanced in Aquarius. It's in the 3rd decan. Nope, it's in the end of the 2nd decan of Aquarius. So there is a sense, I think, where we can do something enjoyable, something grounded and pleasant that is nevertheless quite different and perhaps giving us something else to enjoy. There's this sense of like continually turning things over with Uranus and Taurus. Things are never remaining the same, even though we may want to continue to imagine that they are. I think that the changes in Uranus and Taurus have a kind of unknown effect, and they're hard to even remember or predict because they're as if somewhere else, or like in another dimension, right? With the internet stuff, but with the moon just applying to Uranus all day, I mean, it's probably a little electrified, probably a little hard to sleep there, to be honest. So as we go into Monday, we wake up with the Mercury square to the nodes. So Mercury is extra busy doing what he will before he goes into Pisces, right? And I've been thinking about, there's a statement in, I guess, one of the ancient authors that says that, I think maybe it was like in the beginning of Firmicus, right? The beginning of Firmicus, where he talks about how Mercury can make outcomes uncertain. So, it doesn't always add to your life to be looking at the chart, be looking at the figures, looking at the numbers. It can actually make outcomes uncertain, and everything about the conclusion and the actual manifestation of something else that's promised, we can make it uncertain, and that makes sense because like things can get lost in the mail, for instance, as like kind of a mundane example. Sorry, I need to remember what I was saying, but I've lost it. Right, okay, like when situations are playing out without as much Mercury in them, there is a sense of things just coming about. Like, for example, most people don't look at the chart before they leave the house, and if you are studying charts a lot, you probably you probably experience that. Like, even people that look at finances, they look at the chart all the time. They're on the toilet at work and they're looking at the chart, right? So it can be inappropriate, and it can also be unhelpful. And there's a sense here, I think, that Mercury is doing a little much. This being at the South Bending, it's at the place where the moon is lowest below the ecliptic, and but there is a sense probably where this is a time where this is going on, and this needs to be happening. Too much use of charts, and the charts kind of making things uncertain, or figures doing such a thing. Because Mercury won't have as much dignity as he does now until he reaches the middle, his term in Pisces with Jupiter. So it'll be very different than then, and there's definitely a sense where there's some charting and rationale that needs to go on the rest of this week that's very important, very fatal. But I think there's also a possibility of getting too wrapped up in the chart, not having enough faith, understanding of what can work out, things that can work out despite of what it may look like on the chart, right? So with that going on Monday, that's going on, but the moon will be applying sextile to Jupiter. It's building in light. The moon's still in Taurus. The moon can see both Venus and Jupiter, so I think it feels good, other than the square to Saturn, which will be probably pretty obvious all day. This like sense of Saturnian heaviness with the Mercury stuff, while the moon is in Taurus and wanting to enjoy and dally with what may be there. So there's a sense of tension between these two very different perspectives on life here that it's really coming to a fore. And with the square to the node, it does make the I guess I could say the this is maybe not literally, but the node and the eclipses, it's kind of like a place between the future and the past where things kind of converge in ways that we can't understand. That's kind of like the invisibility aspect of it, but it very, very much is this extreme faded energy, but it has this heaviness that the moon isn't really into. So not too fun, but probably it is taking us where we want to go. So on Monday though, the Saturn stuff melds into the Neptune stuff here. So there's some Saturn Neptune stuff, and the Saturn Neptune stuff from someone that's enjoying it, I guess. It's very exacting in its manifestation. It's very, this is real. Like, this is reality. We're making something that is maybe only art or only surface. We're making it into something that is manifest and is a tangible experience or something. But it seems to me that the Saturn Neptune stuff, like it emphasizes its reality and the Neptune experience. But these two things, which are, I guess, contraries, are somewhat or very manifestly, prominently blending together. So the Saturn stuff, it demands the sense of reality, especially with the Saturn and Aquarius still, but the Neptune stuff is kind of like looking ahead to the years of Saturn Neptune. I guess I'll keep saying that every month with the moon in Taurus here. But as we go into, so kind of dreamy, kind of washed out, but as we go into Tuesday, the moon goes over the node here, and so we got Saturn, Neptune, North Node, with Mercury on the North Node too, and the moon coming off of Uranus, so this is very much like scattered, erratic kind of energy. Let's look at this view here. Let me turn off the point. I know I do that every time. So the moon, Mercury, North Node. So it's the node first and then Mercury. So there's a very strong moment of North Node in Taurus with Mercury. There was a chart that I was looking at earlier this week of I think it was the last time the North Node was in Taurus, or no, I think it was the 70s. It was the the 69, 70, 71. Might not be quite getting that right, but that eclipse series in Taurus, I was looking at that. Anyway, I guess I'll have to talk about that later when I have more grounded stuff about that. But on Tuesday, the moon is going through the final degrees of Taurus, making a square to Mercury, which is, still dealing with like the serious, straightforward applications of science that we can tap into here with power and a sense of overcoming, probably with the Pluto stuff. It could also be with a sense of money, like what money can do with science and so on, and in the tangible world. And there's a sense of like the tangible world now is so blended between like the digital space and the material space, I guess. And I think that probably plays in pretty heavily here, because as we go through the rest of the week, Mercury goes into Pisces, that's the next thing. So the moon will go into Gemini with the Mercury still in the anaretic degree of Aquarius there. So with the moon in Gemini moving through, there's a sense where this is not very fun, I think. I think there's an easy open outlet for the energy of Mars to be hitting the moon here. So both of these ingresses of the moon into Taurus and Gemini have this aspect of Mars at the very second degree of Aquarius. But there is like a mollification that comes with that, and that probably will be, at least that's what we're left with, at least with Venus being ahead of Mars. With the Venus-Mars thing, to go back onto it, there's a sense that there's a sense of like creating conflict that ultimately is a resolution that I've noticed like in my personal life, like kind of feeling the heat, like other people are feeling it, maybe getting into an argument, but the fact that we had the argument, it led to like a cleaner space for one thing, and like a cleaner and more clear understanding of myself and the other person. So right now there's not really a sense of coming together without this sense of division, and there has to be a balance of finding that separating element first in a way, and then coming together. But it could be social. It probably will be very social and enjoyable. There's a sense of Venus and Aquarius being very also very social, and I think if Venus isn't exactly experiencing that, that's at least lending something to this more mercurial moment. But Mercury is in the anaretic degree, so and pretty much still squaring the nodes. So I would expect this to be pretty it screams like last minute extremes, being related to things that will happen in the future, and it have happened in the past with the node. But Mercury is in a trine to the moon by sign, so I think there's a sense of stability where we are wrapping things up with Mercury and Aquarius here with a good issue. But Mercury will move into Pisces on Wednesday, so let's look at the moon on Wednesday. So the moon doesn't make any aspects. It just, it's really applying to, what is it applying to? Saturn? No, Jupiter. So the moon's applying to Jupiter, so, we have this building first quarter square to the sun and the mutable signs with the sun and the moon and Jupiter there. So I think there's a sense of integrating all of these things we've learned, things we've noticed, things we've been talking about, things we've been seeing maybe, bringing a sense of ultimate integration to it. The more wisdom and understanding you can bring to bear on any given situation that you have, probably will be more good more good outcomes for you on those regards. So that's what I would expect. But with the Mercury in the anaretic degree ruling the moon, it does get extreme, I think. I know we've said that already. So the Mercury will go into Pisces in the evening. So this last part of the moon is ruled by Jupiter in Pisces. So the moon is still applying to Jupiter when this shift happens. Mercury, I think, in 2020, that's the most memorable Mercury in Pisces. I've only really been looking at astrology since late 2019. So that was really like a standout thing for me, especially like, just tracking Mercury cycles and like learning that I was like a Mercury ruled person and so on. And that I remember that moment very distinctly. It was really weird, but I think that this time will be significantly better. Mercury being co-present with Jupiter, and without much malefic influence really going on with Mercury and Jupiter, it's pretty good. But probably a time to be very aware, since we do have Mercury and Jupiter in the term of Mercury during the annual revolution on March 20, and with Mercury ruling Jupiter by disposition for much of 2022 and 2023 when Mars goes into Gemini, and Jupiter in Aries, of course. So this Jupiter, Mars, Mercury dynamic, I think, deserves to start really being paid attention to here. We have the semi-sextile of Mars and Mercury and the semi-square of Jupiter and Mars. So definitely a moment where maybe it's not quite seen, but it is definitely a factor that we're dealing with there. Something to be kind of paying attention to. So as the moon goes through the last part of Gemini, the moon goes into, let's look at this side. So it's Jupiter, Sun, Saturn, Neptune here. So the moon makes a square to Jupiter, makes a square to the Sun, makes a trine to Saturn, and then makes the square to Neptune. So I don't know. It's definitely a continuation of what we discussed more towards the beginning of the episode, with the Saturn-Neptune stuff kind of happening with the moon simultaneously, since they're in similar degrees now in adjacent signs, I guess. Adjacent, maybe. So, the moon, it's like the chattiness and the sharing and the expression takes on this Jupiterian character. So, there's a sense where it's too big, it's too much, it's too excessively rich with the Jupiterian themes, the symbols, the stories, kind of like they're just kind of pouring out. And maybe like the trine to Saturn there kind of like gives us stability with all this stuff. The moon is building in light, so we have a first square of the moon to the sun, and that gives us kind of an impetus and drive to really be pushing ahead with the things that got started around the new moon. But I think there is definitely a sense of confusion here, because the moon is void of course off of Saturn-Neptune on Thursday throughout the rest of the day. So we have a whole day really with the moon void of course before the moon enters Cancer. And then the moon makes immediately a trine to Mercury. So It's a very different experience, I think, of Mercury than we had with very, very different than like the Taurus, Aquarius stuff at the later degrees of Taurus on the node. This really partakes of that watery element here. Like we have both signs with the trine here being water. We have the ruler of Pisces involved in the chart as well. So there's definitely a very profound sense of integration with all these stories, narratives, systems of truth, revelations of truth. I think the truth evades systematization. You know, it abides in itself, right? And that is, something kind of transcendental or that escapes definition. And maybe we're kind of grappling with that. The moon in Cancer probably would be pretty moody overall. I think there's a sense where there's like a lightness there that wasn't there before, because now we no longer have Mars in Capricorn opposing the moon. So the moon kind of has a little bit more room to breathe here, and maybe just kind of able to really enjoy the time. But since the moon is pretty much just on its own off of Mercury on Friday, the moon is just kind of translating that light from Mercury, kind of maybe ruminating, telling stories, brooding, perhaps. But it could be kind of moody still, even if Mars isn't like really there to mess with it. But still pretty moody anyway, because it's Cancer. So definitely very water flowing, thinking about things in a different way. So that's Friday, really. That's kind of all that goes on. Hard to really know what goes on there. But on Saturday, the moon is in a sextile to Uranus, a trine to Jupiter, and then later in the day, the moon makes a trine to the sun and the trine to Neptune. So we have I think perhaps a sense of upliftment on the moon here, more, like I said, than we had with the moon opposing Mars there. But at the same time, maybe, this moon isn't as enjoyable. Like the stories are there, the understanding of a mystery is present. There's a sense of looking to God for favor and understanding, for sure. But there is definitely some sense of it not being the enjoyable moment in Cancer that it could be, perhaps. When Venus will be in Pisces, I think we'll have a pretty good Cancer moon. Although I don't know, because maybe with Mars being also entering Cancer, Pisces, I don't know if we get that. Oh, we do actually. So we do get this on April 7th. We get this Cancer moon with Venus trining the moon. That'll be more enjoyable than this Cancer moon. This one has some moodiness, dealing with the truth, thinking about things. You may hear things that just don't make sense, that maybe are not grounded, people's ideas about things. Trying to integrate all of his stuff, very hard to do unless you get wisdom, because otherwise there's no basis really. So that's what's going on. The moon will be just kind of hanging out there, trining Jupiter, which I think is nice, and the sun. It'll probably be a nice day that somehow doesn't feel as enjoyable as it ought to be. All right. And it's pretty dreamy too, with the moon being in the trine to Neptune and the sun. So there's a sense where our energy is doing good, but it also is confused. There's a sense of confusion, or perhaps deflation, or I dare say illness around the energy, with the sun being close to Neptune being related to hospitals and illnesses. But That's hard to know. That's maybe how it'll feel like in your energy with the moon, blending with Neptune. But overall, I think this week it starts off kind of serious, integrating these new things, this Aquarius stuff. But really, I feel like the Aquarius stuff doesn't really have as much of a role in like the second half of the week. So pretty interesting week. Hope you enjoy it. God bless y'all, and I'll see you later.